mean, the way I wrote all these songs was like I knew I wanted to write about these small things, and then that I wouldn't naturally, have had my attention drawn to. So I basically had to kind of like stare at these plants coming out of the sidewalk for a while, and then and keep like trying to explain to myself like what is it about this that I find so interesting or compelling or
sounds like something Plato would have done.
Yeah. And then once I figured it out, then I had to kind of like figure out how to articulate that story in a way that would show like what these like pathetic little blades of grass are doing is really the same thing that's happening with like the trees outside your office, for instance. Like it's all they all kind of rhyme with each other, and just because it's in a city and surrounded by concrete doesn't mean it's not also nature.
Hey folks, what's happening? Welcome to Your Forest. My name is Matthew Kristoff, and on this podcast we talk about the environment and the science of sustainability. Today's episode was really enjoyable for me. It's definitely a step away from hard science and that kind of thing. It's been an interesting go this season. I went and talked to a lot of people about a lot of things that I didn't expect to do. I wasn't really planning on doing it. Just kind of happened naturally. And this episode and this season really has been kind of a look into perspectives and ways in which we can view and understand the forest more than how we manage it, right? So I think I'm kind of accidentally falling into this wave of just trying to find as many perspectives as possible, many views as possible on the forest so that we can get a better view of it and manage it better for all values kind of thing, right? So the idea really is that behind every perspective, there's a nugget of truth that will enrich our own perspective, right? And by collecting all of these perspectives and adapting our own view over time, we ultimately develop a more comprehensive and nuanced understanding of the forest and reality, right? So I thought this is why this is worth looking into. Presumably, I guess, with enough collecting and adapting, one would eventually come to the ultimate view or perspective, right? Or the most comprehensive perspective. So that's kind of what I'm trying to do with this season. I do have some really cool hard science stuff coming up. Don't worry. Recording very soon is one about the effects of glyphosate on biodiversity long term in forest management. So that's definitely going to be a hot one. Very interesting. Looking forward to that conversation with a few ecologists. And I got some other stuff in the works that I haven't sorted out yet that is very much hot topic issue, very much about forestry, very much about management, very much about what we're going to do. And so lots of cool stuff coming. You guys are really going to enjoy it. This is just a step into the softer side of our relationship with nature. And this episode is a step into artistic expression and how that affects our relationship with nature. And so I spoke with a gentleman named Ben Cosgrove. He is a traveling composer, performer, musician. He explores the themes of landscapes, place, and environment. And so his latest album, The Trouble with Wilderness, is dedicated to those small, mundane things in our everyday life that we kind of miss, right? So like grass coming up through the concrete or a flower through the concrete or the tree in your backyard and that kind of stuff. And I thought there was something interesting about that. And I just kind of wanted to speak to him about, his relationship with nature, his perspective, and the role that art has in helping us relate to nature and the way it affects our decision making and how we feel about it and how that ultimately affects management and that kind of thing in the end. So it was really cool conversation. I really enjoyed speaking with him. West Fraser is the #1 sponsor for Your Forest podcast for 2021. Without them, this would not be possible. I could not do this. I could not justify it. So thank you, West Fraser, for allowing me to explore my own mind and other people's minds in the attempt to find cool stuff to talk about. And Greenlink Forestry is also a sponsor. Been with me since the beginning. Same thing. Could not do this without them. Thank you, Greenlink. And Damaged Timber is the final sponsor. They are selling really cool stuff. They go out into the bush, into wildfire burn areas, cut down wildfire burnt trees, bring that back, mill it up, turn it into stuff that you can put in your kitchen. Super cool. You can have a piece of history in your home. It's really neat. Check them out. damagedtimber.com. Put in your Forest 10 at checkout for 10% off. So yeah, now we're ready to dive into this conversation. Stick around to the very end. I have the first song on his album is going to be playing at the very end, so you guys can check it out. That's the teaser that you heard at the very beginning. You can hear the whole thing at the very end of the episode. So yeah, stick around for that. And yeah, let's do this. Here we go. Great conversation with Ben Cosgrove, all about artistic expression and our relationship with nature. Here we go. I wanted to start off with getting you to define your music. Like, what would you? How would you define it? What is the genre? Yeah.
Oh man, you're starting off with a hard question.
All my questions are never easy. I try to keep them as hard as possible.
Yeah, no, I mean it's something I grapple with a lot of the time, and I've kind of ended up sort of deciding not to think about what genre I'm in.
Gotcha.
It lands, for the most part, somewhere between classical music and folk music. It's instrumental music, usually kind of based in piano. But I don't know, despite the fact that it's instrumental piano music, I kind of identify as more of a singer-songwriter who doesn't sing than as a composer. But I think it has more to do with just maybe my philosophy about how the music should live in the world. Like I feel like less of an architect than, someone who kind of comes up with a song and then kind of runs around the continent playing it in as many buildings as he can and kind of watching it change and grow during that time. Which seems like more of a folk musician mindset than a classical composer mindset.
Well, it sounds like you got a good answer for that question, so I don't think it was all that difficult.
I mean, but the important thing about it, I guess, like for the purposes of our conversation, especially, is that my music is all inspired by landscape and place and environment in some way. I kind of discovered 10 years ago or so that this was just a very fruitful tree to pluck from in terms of finding ways to frame my music that would tie it to something in the real world and not just, a set of sounds that sound good together.
Yeah. So getting right into that, actually, so how did that come about? How did nature inspire your music?
It's a good question. I mean, I've always, I've written music kind of for my whole life. From as early as I can remember, I liked kind of compelling myself to write about non-musical stuff. So
okay.
I was lucky in that I had this really kind of creative piano teacher when I was a little kid who really instilled in me this drive to kind of use music as a way to kind of figure out how I felt about the world. So it was it's always been a way for me to kind of perform an audit of my feelings and how something is. Like I'd read, it's
like a journal.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'd write songs about some, historical essay I read, or, I wrote a song in high school about a math concept that we learned.
A lot of Fibonacci sequence in that one. Huh?
Totally, yeah. I wrote some really pretentious, awful things for a long time. But I was in college, I think, before I realized that I had this really profound and obsessive interest in place and landscape, and kind of, specifically in kind of ways in which, the physical parts of the environment that makes one place feel different from another. Which is something I'd never really thought about. And then it kind of tipped me in this whole, as you know, it's this enormous, cavernous, labyrinthine rabbit hole full of, environmental studies and landscape studies and biology and ecosystems and
There's a lot of work going into it. Yeah.
There's a lot. Yeah, exactly. Well, a lot of places to go from it too. So I just have never, I kind of dipped into that in my early 20s, trying to figure out how to write about these subjects that I was interested in a way that felt kind of honest and productive and like might be compelling for the other people who would listen to it.
That's important.
Yeah, eventually. Yeah. And yeah, no, I don't know. I've never, the well hasn't run dry. I just have kept finding that whatever I happen to be wondering about, there's some way to tie it to landscape and geography, in some way. It's just this endlessly interesting field. And I found also that the things that I am most interested in about it tend to, be the types of things that are best expressed using the kind of music I make. So,
okay.
It's been a lucky vein to tap into.
Right. So there was no real like light bulb moment, like you were out hiking with your family or something and you're like, oh, I'm going to do this. It just kind of happened naturally, slowly over time.
Kind of happened naturally, slowly over time. I mean, I've definitely refined the way that weirdly, I've changed my methodology a bit to use a totally inappropriate word for like musical composition. But I like at the beginning, I think I tried to be more objective. Like I was operating under the delusion that it was possible to write kind of like or like render an objective portrait of a place or say something about an environment just by converting data into sound, basically. And like my senior thesis in college was this totally bloated, overblown piece of like electroacoustic music where I had it was kind of framed as a west to east pan over the state of Massachusetts, and it would draw from these 3 different data sets, which were like a population map of the state and a map showing forestry rate or like what parts were forested and what were not.
Right.
And I think the third one was like a road map, which would kind of show, which I would then, turn into a sonogram, and as the roads kind of gather together as you moved east towards Boston, it would, you would hear that.
Oh, interesting. I can't even conceptualialize what that would be like.
Yeah, well, I can tell you, it doesn't sound a lot like Massachusetts. So it was an early lesson in kind of, I don't know. It sounded, interesting, I guess, but there was no way to tell what it was. And it didn't ring true, and it didn't feel like it emotionally resonant. It didn't speak to what I thought Massachusetts was or meant. Right. It just sounded like a bunch of cool noises.
Is that because you think that there was no emotion in that part of it? It was just pure data, like you said?
Yeah, so since then I've written music using data in ways that I think are more appropriate. Like the lesson I think I've learned is like you have to know, or I mean, I'm only speaking to my own experience here, but the pieces I've written that rely on data, and I can give some examples in a minute, I suppose, but are the ones where I've identified a trend in there that speaks to me on an emotional level in some way. Like you can see, like by reading these numbers, like a ecosystem going out of whack or something like that.
Right.
And then you kind of feed those numbers into a musical machine that will then interpret them in a way that, will resonate with people similarly.
Right.
So like I wrote a piece, I did an artist residency at Isle Royal National Park several years ago and wrote a piece that used, data from that. Are you familiar? I mean, you must be. There's this ongoing, like 50 plus year study of, moose and wolf populations on the island. They're like the only 2 species of megafauna.
That's right. Yep.
And there's all this cool information about how, like one species will surge and then fall, and then the other one will mirror it, a few years later, et cetera, et cetera.
There's a lot of podcasts about it, actually. Yeah.
I'm not surprised. So I wrote this piece, using those 2, data sets where, like a cello would play the role of one animal and I think it was a viola. The viola would play the role of another. But the rules I set up were they basically played a line graph that I rendered using the data. And the rules I set up were set like when your line hits these points, you move to these notes and like hit this intensity. And when it goes down here, you change it to these notes and this intensity.
Okay.
And the result is that like when one animal isn't completely overpowering the other one, the sounds are kind of like harmonious and interesting and kind of like weave in and out of each other. And then when one is really kind of like in the years where like the parvovirus wiped out the wolves, then like the moose is just screaming away and it's unpleasant to listen to.
Oh, I see what you did there. That's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah. So it's a small example of, most of what I do is not data driven, but when I do use data, I try to know what I'm doing with it first.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah. So do you find yourself like being that your music is all inspired by the way how you put it, geology and geography and place or something?
Yeah, I don't know enough about geology, but yeah, place and geography.
Right. So being as that is, do you find yourself being like unusually cognizant of the sounds of nature, like more so than other people?
Yeah, I think so. Weirdly, it's only at certain times in my it's not always the sounds that I'm thinking about. It's more about the although like I've definitely spent some like years thinking really hard about soundscapes and soundscape conservation, and I actually wrote a bunch of articles about this.
Okay.
That I can send you afterwards if you're interested.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, for the most part, I'm interested, at least these days, in like topography and what it feels like to be like a person-sized person in differently shaped landscapes. Gotcha.
So just the more the internal, like the subjective feeling of a location kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Thank you. It's the sort of thing, like for instance, like where you are and where I am right now are, like they, are very, very different. I've always been so interested in what, like qualitatively makes that so. Especially since for my job during non-COVID times, it requires me to be kind of on the move all the time. And I think, like an unfortunate thing that happens to a lot of musicians is that like you just kind of get burned out on it. You like stop paying attention to where you are because it doesn't matter because you'll be somewhere else the next day. And it's
really easy to not be in the moment.
Yeah. So by like choosing this subject matter, it kind of compels me to pay attention to where I am all the time. In ways that have made like the touring life feel way more nourishing and sustainable and like gratifying for me.
Right. That's really cool. No, I like that. There's something to be said for that mindfulness piece of it, right? And just being completely aware and in tune with, your surroundings and what's going on. So how do you think like this whole conversation where I'm trying to go with it is the idea of like perspectives, right? And changing perspectives and different perspectives. Cause like I said to you before, this podcast it's very much in the past been about the science and the data and the kind of like what you've been talking about, right? You kind of derived your music originally from the hard data and you've kind of moved away from it a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I've noticed that with this podcast, there's been a natural progression with my understanding of science and subjectivity and that kind of thing, right? And how I've realized that science, although is it's based in fact, in truth and in evidence, right? Our understanding of it is made richer and more comprehensive by including the subjective and the emotion and the feelings and that kind of thing. And so I've been trying to bring that idea into this podcast, into like, we need the science. The science is crucial. Like you need the data. That's what helps you make those real decisions. But there's so much more perspective and deeper understanding to be had by involving the personal.
Totally. That's been my experience for sure. I don't, I mostly feel lucky that there is a role for, like the fuzzier stuff in the world.
Yeah, for sure.
Like it's definitely where my kind of natural, interests and abilities run to is kind of the more kind of blunt instrument,
Right.
Like what does your soul feel like type of stuff.
Okay. Yeah.
But it's certainly always informed by the work that is done by scientists. My understanding of these different landscapes and these different places is completely built on what's been learned about them through, decades and decades and centuries of work to understand why they're there and what's happening with them. So I feel like the two fields have a lot to say to each other. And I feel lucky whenever I'm in a position to kind of interact with a scientist or interpret their work in some way.
Yeah, it is. It's like they're opposite ends of kind of the same thing in a way. You know what I mean? Like there's, you think about, what is it, that children's learning program, STEAM, I think it is. It's like science, technology, something. Anyways, art is in there as one of the things, right?
Yeah. This is the difference between STEAM and STEM.
Yes. STEAM and STEM. Yeah. And
I'm glad we got in there eventually. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And that's been shown that the artistic necessity of learning is huge because we are emotional beings, and that's how it all comes about. Right. So what do you think, like when it comes to stuff like say making environmental management decisions and that kind of thing, and I know you're not in that field, but like, what do you think the role is of art and like your music in particular with helping people to connect and help them, help provide perspective for when they have to make those decisions?
That's a good question. I mean, it's sort of a thing that I wrestled with recently. I mean, it's never intended for, I try not to have my music have much of a kind of, message of any kind of advocacy for one thing or another. I think that
being instrumental, there wasn't a lot of rah rah rah. It was just, but it was pretty. It's contemplative, right? Like I found myself very much. I've been listening to it actually every day for the last 2 weeks in the morning when I wake up and have my coffee. The whole album, and I've really really enjoyed it. And it's been,
I'm touched by that. Thank you.
Yeah, I didn't think I would listen to it every morning for 2 weeks, but I have. So
that's great. Keep that play count up.
But
I think I sometimes have a crisis of conscience about the career I had because my friends are like doctors and social workers and like environmental management people and like conservationists and my job is to like have a ball driving around the continent playing piano. So but I think the way I justify to myself the work that I do has always been kind of like if by hearing me sit on stage every night and like tell stories about how these different landscapes and environments and places have influenced and affected me, then I might sort of like inspire somebody else to wonder about how the places that they inhabit and move through and care for affect them. Then I mean, this does sort of that's actually a major reason that I made the new album in a weird way, because I sort of discovered that I was writing way too much about, like, even though that was my sort of self-declared goal, most of the music I had been writing for the last several years was like about, like national parks and like the middle of the ocean and all these places that people weren't really coming across in their everyday lives. So with the new record, I really tried to set myself the challenge of like only writing about places that were the sorts of things that people might go by every day and not think to wonder about.
Yeah. It's an interesting way to go about it. Cause like what kind of things inspired you to does each song have a specific like visual in your mind, or is it just kind of a conglomeration of feelings and emotions that you tied into this?
It's both of those things, I guess. I mean, it's definitely intended to be taken as like a start at track 1 and run through track 12 type of arc. But yes. And there are like obviously things that like kind of recur and repeat throughout it. But yeah, no, certainly each song is inspired by something discrete. I wrote most of it during the beginning of the pandemic, when I had just moved into this sublet in a small town or a small city in Western Massachusetts. And, but I had, planned to write all this music about like being in, like looking, at the world just outside your front door. And then suddenly all these rules came down that sort of mandated that I could only go right outside my front door.
Yeah, no choice anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I had to really like walk the walk.
So what kind of things, like say the first song, what inspired the first song? What is your visual like about, the everyday?
Yeah, that song sort of like intended to be like a thesis statement for the whole album. So it's
okay.
The visual I always try to give people when I play it is like plants growing up through the sidewalk cracks. And it's intended to draw this contrast between, so there's that very kind of mechanical, repeating, eerie piano track.
Yeah.
That kind of opens it and runs through. It's a very like simple melody that I tried to boil down. And then over the course of the song, that kind of these other like big glowing blooms sort of emerge from around the sides of it, and it almost overwhelm it in points. So it's just supposed to illustrate this kind of contrast between something very kind of like metric and rigid and mechanical and controllable, surrounded by something kind of more chaotic and ethereal and hard to get your mind around.
Right. Yeah. And it's gotta be challenging to try and write about something like that, because I mean, like you said, like you're writing about, the deep wilderness where nobody goes, and it's like, it's got this romantic value that everybody can understand and visualize kind of thing. Right. And then going to like, talking about some grass growing out of a sidewalk and being like, yeah, go grass, you killed it. Like, how do you go about writing like the music? Like I said, obviously I've listened to it, like I said, every morning for the last 2 weeks kind of thing. And it sounds so like triumphant and like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like it doesn't, my visual is not that it's about that, but I'm sitting here listening to it in my office, looking at the trees outside and hearing the traffic go by. And I start to get this understanding of like, we should be appreciative of all these like little things that we have around us. And that does have a bigger role in our perception of nature and our relationship to it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I'm glad to hear that that's your impression. I think, because in a way, what it's intended to do, I mean, the way I wrote all these songs was like, I knew I wanted to write about these small things, and then that I wouldn't naturally, have had my attention drawn to.
Yeah.
So I basically had to kind of like stare at these plants coming out of the sidewalk for a while, and then like and keep like trying to explain to myself like what is it about this that I find so interesting or compelling? Or
sounds like something Plato would have done.
Yeah. And then once I figured it out, then I had to kind of like figure out how to articulate that story in a way that would show like what these like pathetic little blades of grass are doing is really the same thing that's happening with like the trees outside your office, for instance. Like,
sure.
It's all they all kind of rhyme with each other, and just because it's in a city and surrounded by concrete doesn't mean it's not also nature. And so that's if there's a message I'm trying to send with this record, it's that it's like actually, well, yeah, you probably know the essay. The album's named after this great essay by William Cronin from 1995, I think.
Yeah, I haven't read it, but I will after this.
Oh man, I think you'd love it. It's also a breeze. Like it's like 25 pages long or something, but it's really kind of compellingly written, and like you'll sail through it. And the argument he makes is just basically that like, wilderness is well and good, and it's important that we have it, but it's not like you can't have your definition of nature be like the places where humans are not. And there's a beautiful passage in the end there, or like maybe it's like towards the middle, in fact, where he says, it's important to remember that the tree in your backyard is every bit as wild and wondrous as the tree in the middle of an untrammeled wilderness somewhere.
I love that, because you're right, the tree doesn't know the difference.
Yeah, exactly. It's doing all the same stuff, and I feel like it's important to remind people that you just because there's wilderness out there doesn't mean that you don't also have have a responsibility to kind of treat the nature in your own life with, respect and awe and interest and reverence.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, so that article is also called The Trouble with Wilderness then.
Yes, yeah, I totally ripped it off from him. So.
Yeah, that's cool. Whatever.
I expect to hear from his lawyers any day now.
Yeah, you never know. There's a movie I think about it too, but I looked it up. That's what popped up was some movie in last year came out. I didn't watch it, but I just saw it this morning. Yeah.
Wow, that's fascinating. I can't believe that I haven't come across that in the
who knows? There's a lot of parallel thinking, right? Like when you're talking about scientific literature and environmental literature and ideas. It's we're all eventually coming to the same conclusion. Yeah. I think.
Yeah, what I keep finding too is there's like 14 people in the entire world too, so we're all bound to like bump into each other.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, it's an interesting concept for sure. Like recognizing that the wilderness surrounding your home or surrounding your office or just in the ditches, that's wilderness as well. Just it's obviously a different definition. If we ask the layman on the street, they're not going to say it is, right? They'll just say, no, it's the ditch. But when you really think about it, like it's besides the fact that it's probably not, natural plants and that kind of thing, it's still doing all the same things and it has no idea. So why not be appreciative and allow yourself to be in the moment and contemplate it a little more. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I think he got a lot of flack at the time he published it too for like, I think a lot of people misinterpreted it as an argument that was like, wilderness is not important. But
let's build a parking lot.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's more an argument of against, conflating wilderness and nature.
Right.
Or even wilderness and wildness.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah, there's a lot of that, I think, right? People tend to the animals that get people to donate to causes. It's the sexy animals, right? Like the wolves and the polar bears and the
like Siberian tigers and the
and none of those people have ever seen one of those, most likely, right? But they're advocates for it, and I get that, and that's great, that's awesome. But yeah, there's not a lot of advocates for the whatever short-haired shrew, or I don't even know if that's an animal. I'm just like,
let's make it so.
Yeah, you know what I mean. So, but like, it's kind of goes the same way. Like, there's these romantic ideas that get people to contribute and to be a part of something, and it's often those vast, untouched landscapes up in the Yukon and Alaska and the middle of Africa or whatever. There's not a lot of appreciation for the what could be considered the mundane or the usual, and so like. What kind of, this is kind of a leading question, but like what kind of, I personally feel like having that mindfulness and that appreciation for the everyday, it has the potential to bring about like a transformative change in our relationship with nature.
I mean, that's the whole, in part, like part of the reason I wanted to write about this stuff is that it's not my natural mood. Like I'm as guilty as anyone else as,
you had to work at it to get there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the timing was lucky again because I didn't have any choice. But
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, given my druthers, I mean, I'm a super restless person, and I love being on the road. And if you gave me the option at any given moment, I would rather be in the middle of the woods somewhere than walking through like the outskirts of a town, like checking out the weeds on a railroad track. But I don't know, it was good for me to like force myself to take interest in these things, especially during that time.
Yes.
And I hope that I'm able to hold on to it. Like I definitely did begin to notice a lot more. Cause like also in the process of writing this, I started like, reading a bunch of books about like road ecology and these sorts of smaller features of a landscape or an ecosystem that I wouldn't have thought about before. Cause I'm always concerning myself with like the sweep of a landscape or like what it feels like to drive from Montana to Seattle and like,
okay.
I hope that by training myself to look at smaller things as they go by, I'm able to hold on to a bit of that.
Yes. No,
but
absolutely.
Jury's out so far.
Yeah. It's hard to do, right? Like when it's your everyday, it's so easy to just push aside and not be present and not notice those things, right? So
yeah.
what kind of, like, I'm going to ask this question again, kind of thing. Like, what do you think the role of music is, or art is, in shaping our perspective and our relationship with nature? Do you think it's important?
I do. I think there's probably a lot of different answers to that. I mean, for me, the way that I feel that I might be useful is just by like, whether my impression of I'm very interested in environmental art generally. It's like
Gotcha.
I'm a big fan of landscape painting and nature essays, and I kind of weirdly I think of those kinds of people as my my role models as an artist tend to be like Barry Lopez and Annie Dillard and like, you know, landscape painters and this sort of thing.
Right.
More so than, you know, a lot of musicians, strangely.
Gotcha. Okay.
And just because I feel like there's value in showing like one person's like a response to a scene, and presenting it in such a way that someone else will see it and find that it resonates with them emotionally in some way, in a way that they might not have expected or thought to articulate. Like, I could, you know, if I tell you this is a song I wrote about, you know, the Northwoods of Maine, and these were the circumstances, and here's what I was thinking about, and then I play this song, and someone else who is, you know, moved, like canoed through those woods a billion times might think, I hope, like, I never really thought about it that way.
Right.
You know, but that feels true somehow. Or better yet, like, I've never been there, but that reminds me a bit of like this canoe trip I made in Ohio, or like that's like a bit like wandering through the woods behind my house. Mm-hmm. I think the best thing that art can do, I mean, I've now veered into making like big, broad, sweeping statements.
No, all good. It's
but it's like, it just like providing a point of connection that might otherwise have been hard to articulate.
I like that.
Like, all I'm really trying to do is sort of show feelings that I have and share them in the hope that someone else listening will think like, oh, I know what that guy's talking about. Like, I've also experienced that somewhere.
Yeah.
It's like, and it's funny that, you know, like Wyoming made him feel that way.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. No, that totally makes sense. And it's, I guess, yeah, like you can't quantify the value of art, right? Like, how do you, it's a very subjective thing. And I just, I absolutely agree. First of all, right? Like it's just like, it's hard to understand how our perceptions of reality and how our decisions are made and how we come to those decisions is influenced by something like art, right? Yeah. But I think it must have a huge impact in a positive way, in a way that's not like an alarmist way or like anything like that, but more in a yeah.
Oh, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
Oh no, I've been cutting you off this whole time, so I'll be fair.
No. I mean, it's interesting. Like, I think there's, I mean, it can have an outsized role sometimes in ways that are hard to tell whether they're positive or negative or neither. Like, there's a lot of that art can do to frame like public understanding of what a place is and what it means.
Right.
And that is, you know, and sometimes that cuts people out, or it presents a narrow, definition of what makes a place what it is. So it's, I don't know, it can be, and I like, there's some argument to be made that like some of these like gorgeous Bierstadt paintings of, you know, Yosemite and like all these Western US landscapes from the, you know, 1800s, mm-hmm. like had a lot to do with, you know, what then wound up being like genocide, you know, like right. people then began thinking of these landscapes as places that didn't have any people in them, that were kind of, you know, that the only way to treat them was to make sure they stayed exactly how we understood them to look based on these,
the preservation idea. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And it's, so it's, it's often good, I think, what art can do to make people like think about or consider a landscape. But I don't know. I'm always aware that it can be reductive, and it can kind of color how people think about different places in ways that are maybe not even part of the artist's intention.
Well, yeah, and everyone's going to hear it, like your music, subjectively, right? Like no one's going to hear the same thing or be inspired by the same thing or have the same image, right? Like it's going to be different for everyone, which is what's so awesome about it, and so it makes it so connective.
Definitely. I mean, I've got to say, like, even though I'll write a song about, Kansas or whatever, and I'll take it out on the road and I'll play it for a room full of people, and then someone will come up to me afterwards and say, like, that were like, they'll think they knew exactly what it was about. It's something completely different. But I don't think that's wrong. I think it's like, all I'm doing is like putting something out there and seeing if anybody, vibes with it in some way. And if it turns you on or reminds you of something in some way, then it's still doing the work. I like the idea that half of the work of a song is letting it be interpreted by somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's some quote, and I don't remember who it is or what the quote was, but the gist of it was something along the lines of that, like, art doesn't belong to anybody, including the people who made it, but it belongs to the world, because with everybody that hears it or sees it or listens to it is getting something entirely different, right?
Yeah.
And so it's interesting.
It's a humbling thing for us pretentious artists to.
It's not your art, bro. That's not your album, okay? Exactly. It's our album. Thank you.
Yeah, no, but honestly, I've come to a point where I think I that comes to me as a huge relief.
You're not responsible.
Totally, I've done everything I could do. I made this thing as good as I can make it, and as good and as effective an expression of the ideas I wanted to get out with it as I can. And then all I can do is just, mail it to everybody.
Yeah.
Or I mean, better yet, when this is allowed again, like show up in people's towns and play these songs for them. And then it's theirs. Like I don't have a problem with the idea that, it's not mine anymore. It can be like the song that people, drive to work to, or like what they do when they're studying, and that'll be their association with it.
Yeah.
I'm just happy to be a part of people's lives.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Speaking of that, do you ever come to Edmonton, or did you pre-COVID?
I did.
Probably
actually
not, right?
Not in a long time.
Okay.
You guys have a great folk festival up there, though.
Yeah. Edmonton Folk Fest is huge. Yeah.
I don't think I've ever played in Edmonton. I played in Calgary.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And I think I played in.
I think the Calgary one's the same artist, just different weekend or whatever.
yeah, probably. They just pick up the carnival and move down.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, but
no. I've driven through Edmonton, but not played there.
Okay, yeah. I'm definitely gonna get on your email list, and if you ever come to Edmonton or Calgary, I'll try and make the trip, because
I'll play in your backyard. It'll be good.
I just got a new house with a big backyard, so it works out perfectly.
Oh, ideal. Yeah. I'm in.
Yeah, awesome. As soon as we're allowed to cross the border.
Yeah, exactly. If I'm ever allowed in Canada.
Yeah, no kidding, right? So I kind of wanted to, we've been talking a lot about this perspective thing and how it's like the subjectivity of art. And do you think there's, specifically, do you think art has a role in science? Clearly you think that science has a role in art, right? Based off of how you begun, but is the opposite ring true?
With the opposite, with the caveat that I don't feel like it's for me to say. I don't want to get out in front of my skis here, but
sure.
Yeah, I've got to imagine that it I don't know. I'm not a scientist, so I can't speak to it directly, but I'm
asking you as an artist. Yeah.
In as much as I kind of write for people.
Mm-hmm.
And scientists are people. So I'm when I write, I have to imagine that if if my work or that of any other like environmental artist is influencing the thinking or eventually the work of a scientist, it's by appealing to them as a person first and a scientist second.
I like that.
That's
the answer I didn't know I wanted.
Yeah. It's kind of it's a thing I've wondered about too, because I've done a handful of residencies where I'm kind of like supposed to where I make work that kind of responds to, you know, scientific work. Like I mentioned the Isle Royal thing. I did another residency on a research ship in the middle of the ocean a few years ago.
Oh, cool.
And it's, I there's something that art can do on the back end too, I think, in terms of, I mean, I'll stop short of saying communicate.
Sure.
But definitely kind of show, illustrate scientific work for the like non-science, like normal guy public.
Right.
Like here's what this experiment has yielded. Here's how I feel about that. Do you know this feeling?
Yeah. No, I like that. That's good.
Yeah. So I don't know how it I don't know at all what it can do on the front end of like inspiring somebody to look more deeply into a particular field of research or something like that. But it's maybe out there. But definitely on the back end, it can. Yeah, I think it can do a bit to show the public what science can do.
Yeah, I like that. The idea that, scientists are people, right? And you're appealing to them as a person, and the emotional. Like it's an exercise in emotion, not in fact, right?
Yeah. That's definitely been a lesson I've slowly learned over the long journey of writing good and bad songs for 10 years. It's like the farther I can lean into the strengths of writing instrumental music, just like really like a great expression of these subjective ideas, and not necessarily of objective ones and facts and figures.
Yeah.
I think that really plays to its strengths, and the songs that I feel proudest of, that I think have been like most resonant with other people, have been the ones where I do that.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. So speaking of the instrumental portion of it, what do you think are the strengths and why go with the instrumental? Like you said, you think of yourself as kind of a singer-songwriter that doesn't sing. And so why instrumental? Like what do you think the instrumental provides that lyrics, maybe take away from?
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to answer because I don't have much distance from it. I've never written lyrics. I mean, the short answer is I just can't sing. But I don't know. There is something appealing to me about having to render something so abstractly. I mean, because I don't write lyrics, but I do often write essays, and that scratches a totally different side of my brain than writing music does. There's something I do find appealing about, especially, but maybe in part because so much of my life is spent dealing in kind of emotion and abstraction.
Mm-hmm.
There is something very nice about this person said this, this happened in 1853.
Oh no, you need that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But I don't know. I think they go to different ends. And a strength of instrumental music that I like is that, maybe that there is so much more room for interpretation. It can spell out a feeling abstractly enough that people can kind of meet it in more different directions than they might if I were writing a song about something concrete. I often do write songs about concrete. On the new album, there's literally songs about concrete. But because it's not, it's not that because that's only kind of metatextual information. You only know what these songs are about really if you know the title and you know the backstory. But if you just hear it, I mean, you can kind of connect with it in whatever direction you want to. And I really value that. It's a way to meet people you know, pretty intimately who I might not have connected with at all otherwise, you know?
Oh yeah, that makes
Whereas
sense.
if I were writing songs about, you know, like here are my strong opinions about, you know, wilderness and wildness and like how like a sustainable mode of conservation, there it might, you know, turn a few people off before they really listen to the song.
Well, yeah, and it also just like it rings of like it's a totally different thing, right? Like it rings of like, well, who's this person to tell me what we should be doing, right? But like when you leave it up to the instrument and up to the own person's mind to decide what it means, it allows for so much more. I don't know. It's just it's more. I like personally listening to it. Like I said, like I'm very familiar with it now, and there's a few songs in there specifically that are definitely very resonant.
Oh, nice.
I don't even know. You know, I don't even know the names of the songs.
I was just say you have to tell me which ones later on.
So, this Rush of Beauty and the Sense of Order, that one hits me pretty hard.
That's the latest single.
Is it? Oh, okay, nice. Yeah, that one has hit me hard since the beginning, and like I said, I listened to the whole album at once. I don't really pick anything out, and I love it that way.
Yeah,
but,
no, that's you're doing it right.
I figured, yeah. And I find with instrumental music in general, the reason I like it, and I often listen to instrumental music first thing in the morning. Like I wake up at 5, and now that I'm working from home, I'm working by 5:30, and it's, you know, the sun's still coming up, and I'm just kind of, my brain's not totally going right. So instrumental is a nice way of kind of turning it on, and I've always found it very introspective and reflective. Like almost, actually, the word that comes to mind is contemplative in a way. I don't know why, but that's kind of how, like, my wife calls it stoner music, but
I'll take it.
Yeah, that's fine. But I find it always very contemplative. Like I often put stuff on like that when I'm driving too, as long as I'm not too tired.
Yeah.
But I find it allows me, it's almost meditative in a way, and it just allows you the lyrics. I listen to a lot of music, and most of it's with the lyrics, but the lyrics a lot of time I think get in the way of your own brain's processes.
Definitely.
And so I like that the instrumental allows that free flow form of thought to happen while also listening to music, right?
There's also a thing I think about, I mean, even lyrics aside, I've kind of experimented in the past with dropping like using a human voice, like singing wordless syllables or something like that, like in my songs, just because I think like singers are like, I love the sound of people singing. But it's like I found it more or less impossible to do. Like you can't. As soon as a voice is in a song, your brain just zeroes in on it. And
absolutely.
It totally, I won't say flattens the kind of like a sonic landscape as you're perceiving it, but it like you're suddenly tracking this one main character and not, you know, listening to the kind of like broader landscape of the song. And so
that's so true.
It took me a while to realize what was going on there, but yeah, I think it is, especially for the scenes I'm trying to kind of put in people's minds. Like it is, I have found it effective to write instrumentally.
Yeah. No, I love it. I really appreciate it. I'm in the point of my life now where I'm really starting to branch out in every direction with music. Like I'm listening to more pop. I'm listening to more classical. I'm listening to more like hard metal. I'm listening to more country. I'm listening, like I'm really just expanding in every way possible. Right? Oh, there goes my dog. Of course.
No worries.
Moose has been on the. Yeah, he's been on the podcast Moose. A few times. Yeah, he's a Shih Tzu.
Excellent. I'm a huge fan of that. That's a good move.
Yeah,
that's cool though. Actually, I feel like it's hard. Like you and I imagine, are around the same age. It's hard to keep consuming new and different music after like your early 20s. I think so. Like it takes more work after you kind of like settle into life as an adult to keep like churning through new stuff. So you're doing the big important work.
Yeah. Well, I started to reach into like soul music and stuff like that. Like stuff that has nothing to do with my reality, right? But it's starting to try to, you know.
No, but it does in a way, right? I feel like that. Yeah. I guess like germane to what we've been talking about. Like if you're able to hear something of yourself in in music by someone you might think you would never have anything in common with, then like that's one of the best things that music can do.
Yeah, absolutely. That's, you know what? That's a good point. In like, you look at, you think about people who are only into one type of music, right? And what type of person that creates. Not necessarily a bad, it's just a very one-dimensional creature, right? Yeah. And then you start talking to people who, you know, they're starting to get into more and more things. There's more thought there. There's more empathy. There's just less prone to like jumping to conclusions and having a hard opinion. They're more willing to listen and be like a productive member of society.
yeah. I know, it's funny. I mean, it's definitely a thing that I spent years just like banging on people's doors trying to convince them that they would like instrumental piano music, even though they wouldn't ordinarily check it out.
Yeah.
I think I finally have persuaded an adequate number of them that that like even if like piano music isn't your thing, like you might like this guy.
Yeah. Well, and honestly, for me, I think yours, most of my instrumental stuff that I listen to is like Explosions in the Sky and
awesome.
This Will Destroy You and that kind of stuff, and not a lot of piano in there, right? It's mostly
more ambient post rock kind of.
Yeah. And so yours has been the first, and I was actually the first one was Jeremy Yates's new album. It was all piano stuff from the Lumineers, I think he is, or something. But anyways,
I haven't heard that. Yeah.
It's good. It's good. But yours has definitely resonated a lot more. And I don't know if it's because I've connected it to nature automatically, and so I feel more of a connection to it or not. But yeah, piano. I think yours has allowed me to enter into the realm of piano music a little more in depthly. So I'm looking forward to expanding that one.
I mean, it's fun. I mean, like running off of what you were saying earlier about just trying to like dive into new genres of music all the time. I think one of the best, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is here, but I play a lot with other bands as well. It's like as a major part of my career, like maybe like 40% of my shows in a given year will be, you know, I'm playing with and I find that like the more it just makes me a better and more creative songwriter and piano player to have to learn how to fit into like a Southern rock song and then like rootin' tootin' Americana song. And then, like, like, and over here I'm like imitating a pedal steel, and over here I'm imitating, you know, something else entirely. So the more like uncomfortable situations I can, uncomfortable in like the good way. I find like that colors my music a lot. Like this album actually is in the time between my previous record and this one, I spent 2 years on the road with an Americana rock band, and it taught me how to play in a totally different way. So a lot of these like textures that I was going for here, that the kind of like more like rigid, blocky, like built environment noises, were things that just like really weren't part of my palette until, you know, I spent all this time on the road.
Right.
With those guys.
Well, that speaks really strongly to like the conversation we were having earlier, right? About art providing perspective and more comprehensive view of the world kind of thing, right? So it's an interesting one to try and quantify and nail down, but I think maybe you can't, right? Like it's just you need it, and you should absorb it.
yeah, maybe it's better that way. It's maybe it's not good to know, to have a plan for how something will affect you. I like the idea of like, you know, I like this, and I'll kind of ride with it for a while and see where it takes me. But there's something about just like trusting in your own taste, you know, like this piece of art, you know, this song, this painting, this book, whatever, like it hits me in some way. And I if I follow that feeling and try to figure out more of why that's happening, I'll learn something about myself or the rest of the world, or both.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what it is, right? Like it's just, it allows for that, just getting out of your own head for a moment and try to see things a different way. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's good. I think one reason I think I've wound up in this job is that it is exactly that. It's like a good way for me to, like my default, I think, is to wind up deeply lost in the like bowels of my own head and like forget about like being a person with a body in the world. And so like having to think about those things and, while still, compelling me to root around in my head and figure out how to explain it to everyone else using, musical notes. It's a very like therapeutic exercise in a lot of ways. It
I could imagine. Yeah, I could imagine that. Like, I think I could use a little bit of that myself. I know my wife the other day, she's like, we were sitting there trying to relax and we had kind of designated it as like, because we've been moving, right? So it's been chaos. Oh, and we're like, okay, let's just take like 45 minutes and like not talk about moving or like what we need to do. Let's just like chill.
Are there any other thoughts you have?
Yeah, and my brain couldn't do it. Like she stopped me. She's like, "You're way too cerebral. Like you need to just stop and just like relax for a second, enjoy this, be in the moment. You don't need to talk about and think about everything you need to do tomorrow right now." And I'm just like, "Oh God, okay. How do I go about this?" And yeah, I think we all need a little bit of that, right?
Yeah. Geez. Yeah. Does your wife provide this service? Like, well,
she is a psychologist, so I suppose she does.
Oh wow. Yeah. No, excellent. Wow. Yeah, good move. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it definitely helps. Yeah, helps me manage my own brain. Definitely. Yeah, it's been an interesting journey. Like I suppose this podcast plays the same role, like a similar role for me, and very much this year, 2021. All the recordings I've done so far, not all of them, but most of them have been pretty not really scientifically based. They've been more about connection and being a human being and our connection to nature and how that is impacted by our experiences and that kind of thing. And although I've had some comments from people, right? Like, well, when are you going to get some more forestry stuff? And I'm like, well, I'm getting there. Okay. I'm on a path right now. Just let me.
Yeah. I apologize to those people for our hippy dippy conversation this afternoon.
I don't know, but that's kind of, this is part of it, right? This is all part of it.
Yeah, and I certainly think so.
Yeah, like it's all interconnected, and this is my art. This is where I'm going with it. So I'll do what I got to do. All right.
Yeah, I mean, I think sorry, I cut you off again.
No, all good.
I don't know. Like I feel like a lot of the way we treat the world, that is. I mean, I guess I'm treading over things we said already, but. Mm-hmm. It can be important to consider like why people think one way about one landscape and one way about another.
Yes.
Like the ways in which you kind of, like act as the steward of one environment, like can have a lot to do with the art you consume about it. And like what things you've read or seen or listened to that kind of help frame it as a place in your mind. So.
Absolutely. Well, it helps navigate the sea of opinions and the overwhelming flood of ideas that like what we should do with this area, with this spot, like how should we manage this? Should we leave it? Should we do more with it? And like how to navigate all that. And I think this allows for the freedom of people's minds to kind of navigate those waters a little more clearly, right? Like if I find when I'm more in tune with my own self, I make decisions faster and I feel more confident with it. I'm less confused and less worried about, because I kind of have, you know what I mean? Like a bigger purpose in mind, right? Of like, okay, well, is this whatever sustainable, or is this the best use of this area for the purpose of sustainability or for whatever, right? Like I don't know, this whole conversation is just me trying to point to people and be like, hey, this is why it's important here's another perspective. And this is why it's important to at least try to understand it a little bit and maybe learn something, right? You never know what you might get from it and how it might impact the world. In the end.
I mean, I guess, that raises a good point too. Like my intention with maybe like one degree of abstraction removed from what you were just saying. Like my intention when I write like a song about Kansas is not that, I'll play it for you and you'll think like, oh yeah, that sounds exactly like Kansas to me. Right. It's like, it should be like, in fact, if you disagree, I feel like it's like like, or sorry, if someone hears it and says like, that sounds nothing like Kansas, then at least it's like compelling you to think about how you feel about Kansas. You know what I mean? Like I'm of the opinion that like a lot of our like broader environmental problems and issues are like not the result of like malevolence, but of neglect, or just like things that, or like people just not happening to think critically or thoughtfully about the decisions they make, or the way they treat a place and that kind of thing. So
we're not having all the information to begin with, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, all I'm really trying to do by like running around talking about landscape on stage all night is just like compelling people to wonder about these things. Particularly like, roomfuls of people that like showed up for a show and didn't know that this is what they were going to be asked to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I like it a lot. What do you think? This is kind of the backwards way of asking the same question that we've kind of been dancing around, right? Is what do you think we lose as a society without the artistic representation of nature?
I don't know. It's hard to imagine though. Like,
right? Isn't it?
Yeah. It's always been there. Like there are like cave drawings of buffalo and stuff. You know? Like, I don't know. I think people are always representing their feelings about places and environments in some way or another. It's just better the more thoughtful people can be about it.
Sure.
And especially, so I guess it's important to have art that kind of might, challenge what you might think about, or that might, rather than reinforcing your pre-existing impressions of a landscape, make you wonder about it, or like why you thought about this place this way before, and why this other person might have such a different read on it.
Yes.
I feel like just kind of getting those conversations started makes the world run better.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and when I asked that question, I was like, yeah, I guess the only reason that, like, it goes back to something I say a lot in this podcast, where I'm like, nobody gets into forestry or conservation biology or land rec or any kind of environmental professional job because, you know what I mean? They love 2x4s, or they love, they do it. They don't do it out of some like statistical analysis reason or data driven reason. They do it because they love the forest and they love nature, and so the whole purpose for being there is emotionally tied. And then sometimes I find when we're in some of these some meetings and trying to make decisions about landscapes and that kind of thing, we sometimes lose that connection a little bit, and we make weird decisions. And it seems like we're just trying to reconnect our purpose to those decisions, and like it would be super helpful and lead us down the right path. And I think art has a huge role in helping remind us that, like, hey, don't get too much in your own head and how awesome you are and like how much you know about science or whatever. But like, also remember there's this emotional aspect, and there's connection, and that's why you're here. So don't lose sight of that. Yeah.
There's an awesome magazine. Actually, I don't know if you can get it up there. It's in, the Northeastern US, and I guess they cover some stuff, I suppose, in Southern Canada, but the magazine's called Northern Woodlands.
Okay.
And they make it in, New Hampshire. And it's kind of just about the stuff you're talking about. It's like, so it mostly it began as like just for foresters, and kind of like, it's like portraits of like how people work on the land and like maintain these, or it's about like farmers and like timber people. And I should figure out if I can find some way to send you I've written for them in the past about like,
right on.
Some like experiments being done in a research forest near there.
Sure.
Anyway, that's off the track. I was going to ask the other question that I was thinking of as you were talking just then. Is like, what was it that got you into forestry in the first? This is probably something you've talked about in the podcast before, but
yeah, that's okay though. No, absolutely, yeah. So like, both of my parents are actually foresters, and cool. Although I tried to steer clear of this path for some time. out of a notion of not wanting to be that cliche.
Yeah.
I was like, no, I'm gonna be a helicopter pilot, or I'm gonna do like, I was like, maybe I'll be a firefighter, or I'll do something else, and like all those things I think would have been awesome too, right? Just a totally different thing. And then eventually, I spent all my time, like we lived outside, northern Alberta. I lived outside of town, in the bush. Like I literally got home from school at the end of the day. I would jump on my quad and go for a rip in the back, kind of thing. Like that's what I did when I was a kid. Or I'd go build a fort, or I'd go, like I had untapped, like I literally, my backyard backed onto, I think it's 125 kilometers of untouched bush. Like
holy cow, yeah,
right. Like there might be like there's the odd seismic line or whatever, with stuff, that kind of stuff, but there's no people back there really, right?
That's true. You are from northern Alberta.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So it seemed almost natural to go this route in the end. The reason I made the decision was just ultimately like I am always thinking about, wondering about where, like, the next hunting spot, the next fishing hole, appreciating the ponds and the trees, and just kind of always thinking, it's always on my mind, right? And I'm like, why would I steer away from this out of some like notion of not wanting to be the cliche person who followed in their parents' footsteps? And I was like, no, I respect the decisions they made and what they've done and how they've lived their lives. And so I went that way, right?
Yeah.
And that's how it kind of happened for me. And I think only in the last, like throughout this podcast, I think before I started this podcast, and even for the first couple of years where it was going, I think I was a little bit confused about why I was doing this and my purpose and like what I should be doing. And I felt a little overwhelmed and maybe a little out of place. And then I think through the conversations in this podcast, it allowed me to solidify my own place in this role and my own perspective. And it really helped me to, like, I feel very secure in my understanding of what I should be doing and kind of thing. So it's allowed that. And it's only because I've been able to speak to so many cool people about so many different things and perspectives that it's allowed me to kind of narrow down what I wanted to do. Right.
That's interesting.
It took till I was 31 to get that. So,
I mean, it happens to the best of us. Why out of place? We're just, I don't know. Like, not necessarily out of place, I guess. I've never really vocalized this thought. I've just kind of realized it as we've been speaking. But I think I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I wanted to be part of the environmental management. I wanted to be part of some kind of solution of ensuring that, ultimately humans and nature can coexist. Like, you know what I mean? And I wasn't sure for a while. I don't think I was sure if forestry was the way, although I know it's sustainable and I knew it was all good. I wasn't sure if it was like the right way to go about it or the most productive way to go about it. And in the end, I came to the conclusion that it is, and it is for me. And I am very proud of the forest industry, the forest sector, and what we've accomplished for the large part, right? I mean, there's always mistakes and bad things that have happened and ideas change, right? But in the end, I am very proud of it and very happy to be a part of it. And I think it was more finding in myself my own rationale for doing this work, right? So yeah. It's a broad enough field that I can understand why it would be easy not to know where exactly you fall in it or what your particular role in such a complex industry could be. Like,
easy to get lost in, right? And it's just it's
a big category.
Yeah, it's a huge category, and it's sometimes it was hard. I think what it did, it allowed me to recognize the purpose behind everything I was doing, the larger scheme, and like how it fits into society. You know what I mean? More than just being like, oh yeah, this is important because of this. It was more like, oh, this is really important to like furthering humanity in this very specific way. Without this, you don't get this, this, and this. And like trying to just like find my slot in society, right? And feel good about it and take pride in it. Where I think a lot of people, the reason they leave fields that they're in is because they can't figure that out.
Yeah. A lot of people don't do that work though. I mean, that's
true.
That's easier said than done, I think, for a lot. Like, you make the decision early on in your life and then you kind of wind up doing it for
Oh yeah,
many years without ever realizing why.
Yeah, I said I was 17 when I started university, and I was like, I should not have been making those decisions at 17. Like I graduated at 22. Yeah, it's just like this is not acceptable. You should definitely not be allowed to go to university until you're like 24, 25, and you know who you are as a human being, right?
Yeah, I know. I was lucky in that. I mean, I wound up being a musician anyway, but I was the place I went to school. You did not have to tell them when you applied what you planned on studying, which was huge. I think like you got kind of like I think it was like the end of your sophomore year before they asked you like to fill out a form saying like this is what my degree will be in.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, it is weird that we ask people to make those decisions early and then they feel they have to stay in it, right? And it's
so before their brains are formed.
Yeah, exactly. Before their brains are finished developing.
I did impossibly stupid things when I was 17. I can't believe it.
Oh my God. Yeah. The stuff that I did even at 22, I'm just like, what the hell? Who allowed me to like do any of that? That's insane. Yeah. Like even now I just bought a house and I just feel like an imposter. I'm like, I don't deserve this. This is
it's something for grown-ups to do.
Yeah. So it's been interesting, but yeah, we've definitely gotten off the topic of music. That's for sure. But I think it's all good. It's all ties well into the introspective nature of the conversation we've been trying to have. So it's good.
That's why I'm here, man.
Yeah. Yeah. No, this is really, really good. So, is there any kind of final things you want people to know about your music before we call it a day? Anything that we didn't get to that you would like people to understand?
No, I mean, I think we just because of how we have been approaching it, I think we got to all the important. It's important for people to know that it's extremely good and they should listen to it immediately.
It is the best album ever created. Yeah.
But if people want to know more about me and my work and some of the stuff I've done before this album, my website's just bencosgrove.com, and you can there's way too much information on there. So you won't be disappointed. There's like links to listen to my earlier stuff. There's some links to some of the essays I've written. There's some interviews I've done with people. So whole information desk of anything else you might want to know about me. So.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah, and the album's called The Trouble with Wilderness. And when is it coming out? This episode's coming out afterwards, but so it'll be available when it comes out. But
it comes out in the past this coming Friday, so it'll be April 23rd is the release date. So by the time you guys hear this, it'll be it's out
it'll definitely be out. Yeah, this is a month and a half from now or something like that. It'll come out. So
and I'm pretty sure I can ship to Canada. So
okay. You got some vinyls or something?
Yeah, vinyl is coming in. It might be a little bit of a delay shipping vinyl to Canada, but it's definitely possible. And CDs and CDs are there obviously, and it'll be on all every streaming outlet you can possibly imagine, and some that I've never heard of before.
Hey, what? Actually, that's a good question. What if you could recommend a format for people to listen to this album? What would the format be? Like, what do you prefer? Hardcore hipster style vinyl all the way.
Vinyl, yeah. Honestly, vinyl. Like I only because I'm so happy with how these things look. It's just nice to hold the object. So I'd like CDs or vinyl is best. Just for that's what I like. Just getting a look at the thing. But Bandcamp, I think that's a thing you guys can listen to up there. It's they're a streaming site. They let you download it as well, and they're pretty good about getting money to artists.
Okay.
And after that, Spotify is just fine. There's knocks against all the different streaming sites, but it's sort of a negligible difference after a certain point. So honestly, like whatever you do to listen to music, I won't fault you for it.
Yeah, I don't know the ins and outs of the politics behind like streaming music and how artists get paid, but
the answer is we just don't. Yeah.
Yeah, they kind of got all the power at this point.
But it helps. It helps. The more the more the numbers go up, the more notoriety you get. So it helps you in some small way, no matter what. So if anyone's out there listening to the music, I appreciate it, no matter where you're doing it.
Awesome. So yeah, definitely. I like I said, I've really, really enjoyed the album, and I wouldn't have had you on if I didn't. I definitely would have been like, no, I'm good. But and I was definitely, like I said in the email, I was definitely a little bit. I was like, I don't know, this might be a little too far outside the box to justify. And then I listened to the music, and I was like, nah, definitely having this guy on. This is conversations I want to have for sure.
Man, that's so good to hear. I mean, the stuff we've been talking about, these are all like my favorite subjects. So
nice.
It's a good fit.
Yeah. No, it went really well. I think it provides a different perspective entirely. It's good for people to hear. So I appreciate you coming on and taking the time to do this, man. This is great.
Thanks so much for having me. It's great to meet you. This is real fun conversations. Thanks again.
Thanks so much for listening, folks. Really cool conversation. Well, I'll just stop talking and you can listen to the song. Here it is.